David was the youngest son of Jesse, a shepherd boy from Bethlehem. While his older brothers served in King Saul's army, David stayed behind to tend his father's sheep. He spent his days in the fields, playing his harp and growing strong in faith and courage. At that time, the Israelites were at war with the Philistines. The two armies stood on opposite hills, with a valley between them. The Philistines had a mighty champion named Goliath, a giant over 9 feet tall. He wore heavy armor and carried a massive spear. Every day for 40 days, he stepped forward and mocked the Israelites, challenging them to send a warrior to fight him. But no one in Saul's army dared to face the giant, for they were terrified. One day, Jesse sent David to the battlefield to bring food to his brothers and check on their well-being. As David arrived, he heard Goliath's challenge and saw the fear in the eyes of the Israelite soldiers. "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" David asked. His words reached King Saul, who sent for him. When David stood before the king, he said, "Let no one lose heart because of this Philistine. I, your servant, will go and fight him." Saul looked at the young shepherd and said, "You are only a boy, and he has been a warrior since his youth." David replied, "I have been tending my father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came to take a lamb, I struck it down and rescued the lamb from its mouth. The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the bear will deliver me from this Philistine." Seeing David's faith, Saul agreed and offered him his own armor. But when David put it on, he found it too heavy and cumbersome. Instead, he took his staff, chose 5 smooth stones from the brook, and placed them in his shepherd's pouch. With only his sling in hand, he stepped onto the battlefield. Goliath saw David approaching and laughed. "Am I a dog, that you come at me with sticks?" he sneered. "Come here, and I will give your flesh to the birds and wild animals." David stood firm and replied, "You come against me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, whom you have defied. This day, the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel." With that, David ran toward Goliath. He reached into his pouch, took out a stone, and slung it with all his might. The stone struck Goliath in the forehead, sinking deep into his skull. The mighty giant staggered and fell face down to the ground. The Israelites watched in astonishment. David ran up, took Goliath's own sword, and cut off his head. When the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they turned and fled. The Israelite army pursued them and won a great victory that day. From that moment, David's name was known throughout Israel. He had defeated the giant, not with a warrior's strength, but with faith in God. And this victory was only the beginning of his journey toward becoming one of Israel's greatest kings.